It was just past midnight when I stepped into the kitchen, barefoot and restless. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint chirp of crickets outside the open window. I wasn't even sure why I had come down. Maybe the leftover cheesecake was calling me. Or maybe I just couldn't sleep again. I flicked on the little under-cabinet light and opened the fridge, letting the cool air wash over my skin. I had thrown on a thin cotton robe over my camisole and shorts, not expecting to see anyone. The kitchen always felt comforting in the dark, like a secret place where the rules of the day didn't apply. But I wasn't alone. Couldn't sleep either. A deep voice whispered behind me, low and almost playful. I jumped slightly, spinning around with my hand over my heart. And there he was, Ethan Brooks, leaning casually against the doorway, barefoot too, wearing gray sweatpants and a black t-shirt that clung to his shoulders. His hair was slightly messy, like he'd run his hands through it in frustration. Ethan had moved into the guest room a week ago. My older brother's best friend, staying with us while he sorted through a messy breakup and found a new apartment. I hadn't seen him like this before, relaxed, vulnerable, quiet. "Sorry," he added softly. "Didn't mean to scare you." "It's okay," I said, laughing nervously as I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "I thought I was the only night owl." He stepped closer, and I felt the shift in the air. It was subtle but real, the kind of shift that made your skin tingle, and your thoughts slow down. "I came down for water," he said, brushing past me slightly to reach the cabinet, his arm grazing mine in a way that felt more intentional than accidental. I watched him pour a glass and take a sip. The under-cabinet light made the lines of his jaw more defined, his throat moving slowly as he drank. I looked away quickly, embarrassed by my own thoughts. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, voice softer now. "You look like something's on your mind." I hesitated. Should I talk about the fight I'd had earlier with my boyfriend? Or maybe I should say ex-boyfriend. It had been brewing for weeks. Tonight just pushed me over the edge. But instead of answering, I shrugged and reached for the cheesecake. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Is that your therapy?" "Cheesecake never lies," I said, smirking as I grabbed a fork. He grinned, leaning against the counter now, watching me with something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Not quite concern. Not quite humor. It was something else. "You always eat in the dark like this?" he asked, voice low. "Only when I don't want anyone to see me devour half a cake," I teased. He chuckled and stepped closer again, this time taking the fork from my hand. Our fingers brushed. I didn't move. Ethan brought the fork to his lips, tasted a small bite, then offered it back to me. I took it without thinking, not breaking eye contact. My breath caught slightly. "That's good," he said with a quiet laugh. "But you didn't need to share." "I didn't mind," I whispered, suddenly feeling like everything was changing in the small space between us. He stepped a little closer, and the energy between us shifted. It was hard to explain, but it was palpable. Something in his eyes, the way he moved, the way he didn't look away. It was like a silent invitation, one that neither of us had the courage to address. I should have backed away, but I didn't. Instead, I stayed right where I was, as he gently placed his hands on my waist. His touch was light but firm, as if testing the waters. I froze, but not out of fear. His hands were warm, firm. He didn't pull me toward him. He just held me there, waiting. I looked up at him, into those dark, sincere eyes. And I didn't push him away. I should have. Or maybe I shouldn't have. My mind was spinning, but my body wasn't moving. Instead, I let the air grow thick between us, his hands resting like they belonged there, on my waist, fingers splayed gently as if trying to memorize the shape of me. "I shouldn't," he whispered. "Then don't," I replied, but my voice betrayed me, barely audible, barely resisting. He stayed where he was, not inching closer, not pulling away. I could feel his breath, warm and faint, brushing against my cheek. I keep thinking about you," he said finally, his voice barely louder than the hum of the fridge. "Even when I tell myself not to." That confession stirred something deep in me, because I'd been doing the same thing, thinking about him when I shouldn't, wondering what it would feel like to have his attention, his hands, his eyes only on me. I had tried to fight it, but now in this moment I didn't want to. "You always were quiet," I whispered. but you're not that hard to read." His lips curled into a small smile. "What do you see?" "I see someone who's trying to be good, even when he doesn't want to be." He leaned his forehead down to mine, the space between us barely a breath now. My heart beat so loud I was sure he could hear it. "I should go back to bed," I whispered. "You should," he agreed, but didn't let go. Neither did I. His thumb gently stroked the fabric at my hip, and I felt it everywhere. A touch that shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. "I'm not going to kiss you," he said after a moment, "unless you want me to." That's when I realized how far this could go, and how easily. But something about the way he said it, full of restraint and respect, made my pulse skip again. "I didn't say I didn't want you to," I answered. His breath hitched, and I saw it, just a flicker, in his eyes. That control slipping. But still he didn't move. Neither did I. Instead, I slowly reached up, my fingers brushing the back of his neck. He exhaled quietly, like that one small gesture gave him permission to exhale. Still no kiss. Just closeness. Just heat. Then softly, as if he were afraid I'd vanish, his lips brushed my temple. Just a feather-light touch. And then my cheek. My jawline. My pulse quickened with each one, every brush igniting something that made me shiver. "You're dangerous," he murmured. "You're the one in my kitchen at midnight," I teased back. He chuckled, his hand now slowly tracing the curve of my lower back. "This house is full of trouble, and I just walked into the heart of it." I smiled. Maybe trouble is what we both need. Another silence. But this one was loaded, thick with everything unspoken. Desire. Caution. That edge between right and wrong. Then his lips found mine. It wasn't hurried. It wasn't aggressive. It was soft. Slow. Intense in its restraint. Like he'd been holding that kiss in for days. Weeks. Maybe longer. And when I kissed him back, I felt it too. That ache beneath the surface finally slipping free. He pulled me in gently, his arms around me now, and I melted into him. Not because I was weak, but because it felt right. Like something we'd both been denying for too long. We didn't go further. Not that night. We stayed there, in the kitchen, in the dark, kissing slowly, deeply, without rushing anything. Every touch was careful. Every moment stretched like honey, rich and slow. Eventually, he walked me back to my room. He didn't come in. He didn't ask to. He just kissed me once more at the door, his hand still warm on my waist, and whispered, "Sweet dreams, Mia." I slept better than I had in weeks. The days that followed were filled with glances, with shared smiles over breakfast, with hands brushing in hallways and conversations that meant more than they let on. We were careful, respectful, but that night in the kitchen had shifted something that couldn't be undone. Maybe we were crossing a line, but maybe, just maybe, we were exactly where we were meant to be. And even now, when I walk into the kitchen late at night, I find myself smiling, because I remember the feeling of his hands on my waist, and how I didn't push him away.